Awesome. And we're back. We're sitting here today with Josh Wilken-Simon of Legacy. Josh, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So having you out here is sort of strange today because you're not someone that's at all new to the industry. I mean, anyone that's been involved in cannabis going back to before legalization knows of Legacy. So tell me a little bit sort of about the man behind the business himself. What was it that brought you to starting Legacy more than a decade ago now?
Yeah. So I really got into this industry while I was going to school at Hamlin. And my older cousin is a really talented glass blower, specializing in pipes. And, I would go watch him blow glass, just fascinating art form. And I started by just actually taking his pipes, kind of doing hand-to-hand at music festivals. Cool. Originally started, not as a business, but pay for the good time at a festival. Mm-hmm. But it sounds corny, but it was like spreading happiness, going to people, showing them a good local pipe made by my cousin. And so that's when I got into it originally, and then opened up Duluth in 2010. And basically just, from there, it's been a whirlwind.
Absolutely. I can imagine. We've all sort of had that experience of buying, a cool, heady piece in the parking lot of a concert or festival. And you definitely get that same vibe walking into Legacy of this is not just, something that was made by some machine and shipped over, but really this is handmade pieces of art. And it's really an amazing experience walking into Legacy.
Thank you. Yeah. Later on, I actually learned that the start of glass pipes was actually artists, following around the Grateful Dead on tour. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't even realize it, but, my start being the same type of thing, like at music festivals was actually how glass pipes started originally. So that was really cool when I found that out, like, oh, all right.
Yeah, you're following in the steps of Snodgrass.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Artists like that. That's very, very cool. Very neat.
So I'm going to bring it forward to this year during the session. I know you were down there during the long days and nights while the legislative process was working through. And I guess the question is, what was the process itself like when the bill finally made its way across the finish line at 1 a.m. in the Senate?
Yeah, it was the whole session was a wild ride. So to back up just a hair, actually, when I was going to school at Hamlin, I was studying political science, urban studies. Before I started Legacy, I actually had taken a semester off and worked for the first Obama campaign and the Al Franken campaign. Yeah. And so I've always been super into politics, and kind of funny, I would say, my passions are pipes and politics. And most people would be like, well, those definitely don't go together. So then after all these years, I've worked on various campaigns and nonprofits and stuff like that. So then all these years, finally the two passions actually collided with HF 100 and legalization. And so I was like, this is just, meant to be, meant to be. So I, of course, like many of us, took this session very, very seriously. And, knowing that with the DFL trifecta that we could have our voices actually heard and really influence the legislation to be a better bill. And I think, if a lot of us weren't there, we would have a legalization law that does not look, like it does. So those last couple weeks of session, it was like everything you had worked for and, all the promises that had been made and, are these, are they still going to happen? Are they going to make it in the bill? Are they going to be out? What's going to happen, during conference committee? And then, I had never thought that it was for sure going to be a done deal last year. You heard rumors about, just would take one senator not to be there. You heard rumors about senators holding out for certain things. Till that last day. And then, in general for me, it was like, we still, if you were a DFLer that just got the trifecta and you have this whole laundry list of stuff you want to get done, of course, including legalization, but it wasn't at the top of the list, would they punt that saying, oh, we could do that, we'll still have a majority, trifecta next session, could it happen next session? So worried that time was going to run out and people weren't going to agree. But yeah, just seeing that thing actually happen and, I started working on some legalization stuff back medical days and making phone calls to, different patients to call their representatives. And then, of course, people that, were working on legalization, in this state before I was even born. So to see that all come to fruition, just amazing.
Yeah, the signing room, I remember you were there. It it was such a cool collective of everyone who had been
Definitely.
doing this for like 50 years.
Yep. I had to throw up the little fist bump.
I love it. So it feels like such a short period of time now, but there was this period of time between when the bill passed and when cannabis wasn't like yet legal. That didn't actually happen until August 1st. And on August 1st, you threw like an amazing party. At First Avenue, we all came out. There were some incredible artists. People probably saw or heard Ilhan Omar played on stage with Marijuana Death Squad. Like, really a fun time. And really the most incredible part for me was coming to Minneapolis and seeing people like ripping dabs in the street of Minneapolis with cops making sure like no one under 21 is going near there.
Yep.
Like in total sincerity, like how did you do that? Like how did you throw what really was the first legalization party merely hours after it happened?
That was a tough one. So the biggest hurdle was, to actually close down a road. You need in Minneapolis, you need over a minimum of a month to just like get all the pieces, together, and they actually say that's a requirement. Like, don't even try to close a road unless you have 30 days. And I think the governor signed the bill like maybe like 33 days or something from August 1st. So, it was something that I really wanted to do because, we were able to pass such a strong bill that didn't outlaw public consumption. Mm-hmm. Granted, some cities have taken other like approaches. Yeah. But, you even look at kind of mature rec states, and a lot of those places, something like the First Avenue Day or the Cup isn't even able to, legally happen now, even in a mature like rec state. So that was one of the things that, I was most proud of the bill, that we were able to have the consumption like aspect of it. And so, when the talk of the event, being held at First Ave, for me, it was always like, that's awesome. But like, if we're celebrating on Legalization Day, like there has to be a place, for consumption. Mm-hmm. And of course, Clean Indoor Air Act, we're not going to be consuming, legally inside of First Ave. So for me, that was just like absolutely critical, was closing the street. The city of Minneapolis actually was a pleasure to work with. Mayor Fry is, a big supporter of legalization. And I kind of originally made the ask, kind of the backwards of the process. Like I went right to his office knowing, how big of a supporter. And so they pushed it from the top down. And so we even had folks, that are part of the regulatory, wheel for these type of events tell me like, I don't think there's enough time, but, they're telling us to like do it. I'm like, all right,
very cool.
So yeah, and then the main thing was like, how do we make sure that this is a safe environment, for everybody? And it definitely went down to the wire. There was a time, which I didn't know was part of the process, but I was on a Zoom and like I was basically in the hot seat, and there was like over 30 different people from, all the different agencies within the city, Metro Transit, Parks Board, Minneapolis Police, all this, and they were just like all firing questions at me at the same time, specifically about like the consumption side of things. And, luckily I was prepared and kind of ready for all the answers, but I even got the question like, so are people going to be able to buy like weed at the event? It's like, no. And is that like a trap or?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was just so amazing, like day one of legalization, seeing that sign that said like marijuana consumption area, cannabis consumption area, like day one of legalization, like in Minnesota. And there it is. Like, it was really an amazing event.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do is like, I was really inspired, when Prince had passed away, and it was kind of a natural thing where all of a sudden they, had shut down First Ave, and, everyone playing instruments. And like that's, although that one obviously being a sad case, but that's something that will go down in the history of Minnesota. So like I wasn't interested in an event that was like, oh, that was cool, some music and speakers. Like I want this to be part of Minnesota's history, and I want people to be, look back and just like what a perfect backdrop, with First Ave being so legendary and Target Center and all that, and beautiful evening. And so,
well, mission accomplished.
Thank you.
I think it's the only time I've smoked a joint and talked to the state auditor within 5 minutes.
And of course, it wasn't just me. There's, a bunch of people that were all working for, and support of all the different cannabis businesses, and just like people having faith in me, to be able to do something like this, and trust and kind of put whatever support they can behind it.
So now I want to ask about what you did a few months after that, the 4th Legacy Cup. You had over 10,000 people show up, 130 vendors at Surly's Festival Field. How did you pull it off, and what was it like leading up to that event after August 1st?
Yeah, definitely, the craziest couple of months of my life for sure. And, knowing we had done the event, in the past, but knowing that like we have to scale it up, with the monumental shift in state law. So definitely a lot of pressure because, everybody had come and had a good time at the event. And I think everybody was, expecting like, let's see, how they do and go to the big leagues. So I had never, had any, besides the cup side stuff, like any experience like throwing a large scale like event like this. So, definitely had to try to pull in as many possible people that, could take on, a very specific lane in the event. It was crazy though. It's honestly, I still feel like I have a little PTSD from the cup and the whole thing. But yeah, just amazing to see, of course, Minnesota turn out and just really enjoy the event. And it's one of those that like all the different like hurdles along the way really didn't kind of like show in the final event, which of course was a worry. And so yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of, work until 3 a.m, sleeping for a couple hours, getting back at it, and just trying to work through the teams and work through all the partners and, whirlwind though, for sure.
For sure. So I want to talk about like one specific aspect of the event, because you talked about how people showed up and they don't really know any of that stuff that happens behind the scenes that was insane. And I think the biggest one was the storm that happened the night before. We were out at the event that was happening inside, came out to, a decent little bit of rain. All of a sudden it started coming down more. All of a sudden we're like, all right, we should probably hold on to this tent. Started seeing others flying through. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I don't know how we're going to recover from this. And then the next morning having people come and have no idea that any of that happened, because we did. There were new tents that were brought in. People were applying stickers day of. People they made it happen, as we always do. But I am curious, as sort of the rain was coming down, as the tents were flying through the air, as they were hitting the side of the stage and getting embedded into that, what was going through your head at the time?
Yeah, I guess it was just, how can we make sure that we can still pull this off tomorrow? Because, like, I had definitely had folks reaching out like, oh, we should probably just, like, reschedule it to next weekend. And it's like, that it's just literally not a possibility.
Yeah,
like there's no way that could happen. But to kind of like throw that back like a hair, the weather's always been kind of funny with the cup, because like originally when I like started, my hope was to be able to do, looking way forward into a, post-rec, post-legal, post-licensed landscape, to be able to have it kind of be on that harvest festival side of things too, where people could have like a full outdoor like grow and try to time it, where they'd be able to have their flower cured and be able to have a brand new, product. So I always wanted to go as late as possible into the year for that reason. But then of course with consumption outside. And so, the cup in the past has, been in October, it's been in November, and like we've had, late October days that were 75, like 80 degrees unheard of for the cup, which was awesome. Last year in November, it was a real cold one. Oh, yeah. And so I was like trying to find this like perfect time. And so like, where we landed in September. So I try not to be the guy that looks at the forecasts, because it's like, it's never going to be what it is. But of course I had to like, from like 3 weeks out when there's no way that it was going to be accurate, I was just like constantly looking at what the weather was going to be. And the problems with the weather actually even started before the night before, because it stormed crazy, like actually the previous evening. Sure. And it unfortunately had to change the entire basically map that we had been working on. The morning before the cup, they came to bring the stage, and they actually got stuck bringing the stage to like the original location, which wasn't where it ended up. And so we had to like completely audible where the stage was, and then that shifted just like the entire like map. But yeah, when tents were flying through the air, it was definitely, how do we make sure people are safe? Of course, like we've seen the videos of people like hanging on and actually like flying with the tents. And so like I was telling people, like, please don't like hang on and like don't get struck by lightning, and we'll deal with, you know, whatever happens. But then I did kind of just like have the foreshadowing as, you know, we're a cannabis community, you know, love, peace, all of that like type of thing. But I, you know, was actually, I can't wait to see how people rally the next day, you know, and people helping each other out, and, you know, the show must go on, like this is going to happen. And then, you know, kind of the hope being like, well, okay, the general public coming to the Cup, like they had to have seen there was a crazy storm. So if they come in and there's, you know, piles of mud and people still setting up, and, you know, it's going to be, is what it is type of situation.
Well, it was truly incredible. I mean, I had people, like I said before, that came and had no idea that it was a huge storm the night before, because, like you said, the community made it happen, and it was an amazing event.
Thank you.
It really was. That morning, I went there. Everyone was getting ready, and I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, "Oh, it's such a like everything's a mess. Everyone's tents are everywhere. Like it's like even Surly's tent is gone." And she gets there, and she's like, "I thought you said it was like a mess." I'm like, "Yeah, it was a few hours ago."
Yeah.
But take us to that day. Like, you see people are getting their stuff together. The weather clears up. It ends up being fantastic. The music's going. The vendors are going. People are doing their consumption outside. Like, what was the day like for you, and what were some of your highlights?
Yeah, you know, I definitely think the highlight would be, you know, it's one of those things that for so many years, you know, we've had to consume our cannabis, you know, in our garages, you know, behind the building, you know, and kind of being in the shadows. And that's why I think the, you know, consumption side of things is so important. And I mean, you know, if you can do the comparison to alcohol, like, yeah, of course people drink alcohol at home, but there's a reason they go to a bar, you know, and then just basically that social aspect of it. So the highlight for sure was, you know, especially with my passion for, you know, the locally made pipes and the art behind it. And so people to be able to, you know, bring all their pipes, you know, in, and then be able to just actually, you know, legally, openly share cannabis together. That was definitely a highlight. That day, you know, kind of running around with my head cut off trying to solve the problems, but in general it was you know, pretty flawless throughout the day. The music was really cool. It was really cool to talk with Slug from Atmosphere, and, you know, I had asked him like, hey, you know, this is my first time at like a large scale, you know, like, be honest. And he's like, oh, I'm always like honest. And he's like, actually, one of my favorite things is to like tell festival organizers like how bad it is and like how many things they like messed up on. It's like, oh, what I got for you so far is that the base keeps having a car alarm in the parking lot go off, and it's pretty annoying. I was like, that's it? Like, so far, I'll let you know. So that was cool to hear.
That's really cool.
You know, I always used to go to Soundset and, you know, all of those, and inspired by that aspect of it. But yeah, again, just also seeing people kind of just like so happy out there, and, you know, people that I hadn't met coming up and thanking me for putting on the event and everything like that. It was just amazing.
Very cool. Nice. So one question that I have, you know, the event itself is a super fun time, but I love really focusing on like the cup aspect of it. Like it's brands coming together. I remember going to that second cup way back in the day, and it feeling very much like, you know, a bunch of friends getting together, sort of trying out each other's products and inviting people in to try them as well. And this year it was much more of like, wow, there's so many brands that I just have not heard of before. And this is so cool seeing how our industry has developed. I wanted to ask you, so this was the first year with that legal home grow category. Yep. You really expanded the number of categories this year. Are there any like, new categories that stand out to you? Any stories of business owners that you wanted to highlight or talk about?
Yeah, I mean, even while we were working through the legislature, I hadn't even thought really about the kind of homegrown, you know, weed and like hash aspect of the cup. And that one actually, like, it was someone on my team's, you know, like idea, and I was like, oh my god, like, thank you. Like, I don't know how that hadn't like crossed my mind yet, because obviously that's going to be, you know, for me at least, the most fun category. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool, and, you know, on that homegrown side of things. Just so cool for people to be able to like, you know, show what they've actually grown themselves and how proud, especially, you know, how new the homegrown side being. So that was definitely a highlight. Yeah, you know, I like to call it kind of like the friendly competition to cannabis, and like, I think it's just amazing to be able to, see what's in the marketplace and see kind of the innovative stuff people are doing. And so I guess I don't have any specific story on that, but
no worries. I just love the cup so much because it's cool coming, walking around the event and trying out people's products that they have, but then also going home and like looking up the list of winners online and then having like a whole new list of products to either try or to say, hey, that was really good. I should go get some more of that.
Right. And I can't wait, as we're actually able to start doing licensing in the state, to really be able to expand the categories too, in what dispensaries are carrying and all that. But also still always, I never want to get rid of that homegrown category because I think that's going to always be such an awesome piece of Minnesota, especially since we have, the year plus where homegrown is really the only option. Mm-hmm. So I always want to keep those categories.
So coming up on this next year here, I heard you recently opened up a cannabis exclusive shop in Duluth, and you have a new shop coming in Woodbury. What are you looking forward to this year, and what should our listeners look out coming from Legacy?
For sure. Everybody's been like, oh, so you're all, you got some vacation and rest and everything after the cup. And we're like, no, from the frying pan and the fire over here. So I originally opened Duluth in 2010 downtown. And, Duluth has been absolutely amazing. I would not have been able to open up a shop in Minneapolis and not be able to do cup and cool stuff like that if Duluth for so many years wasn't so supportive. But the kind of downtown area had just, run its course on me. So 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night, turned off the open sign for the last time at that location, which was pretty surreal. And it was, checking in kind of with my current employees. It's like, so, in 2010 when I opened this, how old were you? And oh, I was 7, I was 9. I'm like, Jesus, I am getting old. All right. But yeah, basically we're in the new Lincoln Park Craft District, which is kind of anchored by Bent Paddle. And when I first moved up to Duluth, it was just, not even a thing, kind of a lot of dive bars and, just not a part of town that I would picture my business. And when I first was looking in 2009, kind of throughout all the locations in Duluth to open, there's a really cool snowboard shop in this area, Damage. And so I introduced myself to the owner and, told him what I was planning to do. And, he's like, oh, this is the perfect place. You got to be down here. And I was too nice to say it to him directly, but I look outside and I'm like, why would I, is this guy crazy? Why would I ever have a business here? And now I'm literally next door. And he's like, why didn't you listen to me in 2009? I know, you're right. So yeah, we're super excited to be down there. So up there in Duluth, kind of rebranding as Legacy Cannabis, and still, huge aspect being, which will always be, all the local pipes. So that's still, a massive part. But kind of getting it prepared for, the transition to a full dispensary and just, the big kind of refresh, and then doubling down on, a huge selection of seeds. We have a grow store as part of the shop. So we're basically going to do everything but actual dirt and soil, and really kind of just start slow on the grow side of things and talk to the people that are growing, around the area, and, what do you need? What do you want? What would be helpful? Bunch of, cold beverages, a bunch of edibles, and then just kind of laying the groundwork. So yeah, super exciting in Duluth. This last summer, we threw, a very small event, but to get something started in Duluth, and collaborated with Bent Paddle, who's kind of our new neighbors. And I think they've been really doing a great job, not only, of course, in the beer space, but in the cannabis space, and being very respectful and, reaching out to myself, reaching out to other people in the industry, hey, not trying to, step on toes, not trying to take things over, advice here and there. And I think they've been just awesome. So we started Northern Haze, so Legacy and Bent Paddle, started small last June, and no consumption because it was still in June at that point. So just kind of the, different vendor booths and live music and, a get together in Duluth, and look forward to doing that again this year, hopefully sometime in June, and where we'll be able to add the consumption aspect of it. And then that's an event that I would like to take out to Bayfront Festival Park. Have you guys ever been out there before?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best outdoor music venue, and probably even in the Midwest. Have you been?
No.
So you have like, it's right basically at the water, and you have the lift bridge as like the background. You have Lake Superior right there. There's a built-in stage. Oftentimes people will bring like their boat, like not want to pay for the ticket, so they'll bring their like boats in, and you can like watch from like the side. And we would always go out there over the years, blow glass and do the vending out there. And so I've got to see Willie Nelson out there, Trampled by Turtles, Atmosphere, Bob Dylan, just so many cool like acts there. So hopefully that's something in a post-licensing landscape where we can do that cannabis event organizer license, that we can have, another large-scale event, cup, but without the competition side of things, in Bayfront. So that's exciting. And then, next up is Woodbury for me. So excited to, never really had a suburbs vibe. So excited to see what the suburbs have to offer. And that'll, again, be a Legacy Cannabis. And it'll be sometime, early next year. We're in the kind of general construction phase of that. And, I hope to be able to secure licensing in a mezzo business landscape and be able to have the 3 dispensaries, which is the max of a mezzo. And so that'd be my Duluth, my Minneapolis, and then Woodbury. So just kind of laying the groundwork. So
That's awesome.
Well,
Sounds like you have a lot coming up in the next year. For people looking to follow along or just sort of check in on what Legacy is doing, where do you recommend to send them?
Yeah, probably most active on Instagram at Legacy Glassworks. Website just legacyglassworks.com. The new Duluth shop, we're at legacycannabismn.com and legacycannabismn on Instagram. So.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. Definitely recommend people go check out the shops, go walk around, look at the amazing glass, enjoy the studio aspect, and buy some cannabis products while you're there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and just, to throw back to you guys, thank you. Of course, saw you both down at the legislature doing all the great work. Thank you for, it took all of us putting our all into it. And then podcast is amazing. Like, really, really appreciate you, bringing this aspect to the Minnesota cannabis community, and keep up the hard work. And I would love to be back for a nice long talk.
Oh, yeah. We will absolutely have you back. That's for sure.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you so
thank
much,
you guys.
Josh.